This is Fady Fareed from Novi Michigan, and this is my first year in real estate. So the most common question I get, how did the first year in real estate go? And before I tell you how I did on my first year in real estate, I want to tell you how I got in real estate and give you a little bit of background. So before I got in real estate, I was working as a nurse, and I was working between 40 to 48 hours a week. And I always wanted to do something entrepreneurship in the entrepreneur world. And of course, I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I started thinking about real estate. So I got my real estate license in end of March. I believe it was end of March, and I really didn't start going to the office until about April 1st, or around April. And I was working about 40 to 48 hours a week, and I took on real estate as a part-time job. So my first few months in business, I was working on my logo and website and all that cute stuff, right? And really didn't do much. So I was just running around learning about how to fill out contracts, studying contracts and things like that. And just to give you perspective, I knew nothing about sales. I mean, all my life I was in medical school, learning, like I was in the nursing field, so I knew nothing about sales. And so it was a tough transition for me. So my schedule consisted of working in the evening in my nursing job, and then in the mornings I'll come into the office at Keller Williams' office and take classes, learn about contracts and things like that. So few months later, I start learning about what do I need to get business, because I thought business will come to me, right? But there was no business. And then that's when I started looking on YouTube and online, and people were saying, you gotta make cold calls. And then I started doing cold calls, making phone calls. And I was mainly calling FSBOs, not even expires, just FSBOs. Now, I want you to take a look at me. Do I look like someone that would make cold calls? Yeah. I'm telling you, I'm coming from nursing background. Look, you want to pick up a phone and convince a complete stranger to sell a house, help them sell a house, help them sell their house. Now, I was completely terrified. I was scared, and I really didn't know what I was doing. So I picked up some scripts. And I actually got a book called The Book of Yes. My favorite book, has all the scripts in it. And I picked up the script and I started calling. And I didn't get my first deal. And I'm looking at my board here because I made me a little cheat board. Let's see. So, it's a little bit backward. Okay, sorry. I'll put it on the floor. So I didn't get my first deal until about June. In June, I was making my calls. I was getting nowhere with it. I was booking an appointment, going on an appointment. I didn't know how to convert anything. Until about June, I got my first deal. It was a condo for $55,000. Okay, I live in Michigan. $55,000. Yep, you can get a condo in a decent area, a nice area. And I went in there, and I didn't get the signature at that time, and then I had to leave, and then the gentleman called me back, and I went and signed and got my first listing. And then within 2 weeks, I sold that listing during an open house and got my first deal under my belt. Now, I didn't get my next deal until, I gotta look at my cheat board here, in July. So in July, I continued doing the calls, and I got my second deal, which was about $230,000 listing. Okay, and then in the same month I got another listing for $285,000 from cold calls, calling FSBOs. So that got a few deals under my belt to start feeling more confident. So I'm right now at deal 3, and then I start doing more work. Now keep in mind, at this time I'm still working 40 to 48 hours. I go in the morning, I make phone calls for about an hour and a half. I book an appointment, and because I was working as a nurse, so I used to have every other weekends off. So I used to try to schedule all my appointments on the weekends, so I can take the listings or book my appointments in the mornings. And then so I took those 3 listings, I sold all 3 of them, And then until then, like October, November, I think I didn't have anything until like later that year. I picked up a buyer for 95,000, and then I picked up another buyer for 170,000. Were sphere of influence buyers. But I believe I ended up finishing that year for 5 or 6 deals, and I made in volume about $1 million, close to $1 million. I know I didn't get to $1 million, but I got about close to $1 million, and I was still maintaining full-time in nursing, part-time in real estate, and that's how I ended up my first year in real estate. So I just wanted to throw that video out there, and if you wanted to hear more of what my schedule looked like, what was I doing to get the deals, the scripts, the appointments, what I was using to make phone calls. If you had any more questions, drop them in the comments, and I'll make sure to answer them. Make sure you hit that like, share, and subscribe. And look, if you have anybody that's thinking about buying or selling in Michigan, I'm in Novi, Michigan, please contact me. I'll be more than happy to help. Remember, make it a great day.